A prism deviates light because of refraction. Refraction is the bending of light as it passes from one medium to another. The amount of refraction depends on the difference in the refractive indices of the two media. The refractive index of a medium is a measure of how much light bends when it passes through that medium. When light passes through a prism, it is refracted twice, once as it enters the prism and again as it exits the prism. The amount of refraction depends on the wavelength of the light. Violet light, which has the shortest wavelength, is refracted the most. Red light, which has the longest wavelength, is refracted the least. This is why a prism can be used to disperse white light into a rainbow. The angle of deviation of a prism is the angle between the incident ray and the emergent ray. The angle of deviation depends on the angle of incidence, the refractive index of the prism, and the angle of the prism. The following are the factors that affect the deviation of light by a prism: refractive index of the prism. The higher the refractive index of the prism, the greater the deviation of light. Angle of incidence. The greater the angle of incidence, the greater the deviation of light. Angle of the prism. The greater the angle of the prism, the greater the deviation of light. Wavelength of light. The shorter the wavelength of light, the greater the deviation of light.